Thank you guys for joining us today. Today I have a special guest, Brian Reeves. Most of you know who I am. Brian is a lender out of the Chandler Queen Creek area who I met a couple months ago and was very impressed with our conversations. Conversations past just lending. It was about financial literacy, about life, about family, about so many things. And as I dig deeper into this financial literacy of wanting to share more with people and learn more myself, I am turning around and I've decided to invite people like Brian over to kind of have a conversation with me. Brian.
Yeah, I'm Brian Reeve, branch manager of Neighborhood Loans in Chandler, Arizona. Um, Glad to be here with you. I'm glad to talk about this. And this is a topic that's very, very important to me. I come from a small town, come from a pretty much a border town in southern Arizona. And so, in the 30 years that I've been doing finance, in the early 2000s, I got at my Series 7, 6, and 63. I got into financial investing, been a mortgage since I was 18. And so through the years, just learning a lot of strategies on how to build and scale wealth through real estate. And so for a lot of individuals, they don't have, or nobody's ever taught them, how do I invest in the stock market? How do I invest in real estate? It's something that I want to do. I just don't know anybody that can tell me or teach me or
where to get started, right?
Right. Or like even knowing how do I get my credit fixed? What are the down payments and all that? And so what I like to do is I like to work with families where I can build generational wealth. And in terms of invest in this, like I could take a couple that's, in the early 20s and say, look, if you buy a fourplex, go into a duplex, go into a condo, get a single family residence, and just this moving strategy, by the time, 10, 15 years from now, I can get you close to $2.5 million sitting in the bank. And the dividend and interest income on that alone pays like $250,000 a year without even touching the asset. These are the types of things that scales the average American ahead by learning these important pieces.
And what I love about it is that we don't have to be millionaires already. We don't have to make $100,000 a year. We can be making minimum wage and investing into our future so that when we get ready and at that retirement age, we have something already to retire.
Right.
How early is too early to invest?
It's never too early. And in fact, it's funny because as I talk to customers year over year, day over day, month over month, I hear this common reoccurring thing like, I'm not independently wealthy. I don't have a lot of money. I'm worried about the interest rate. This is my first time buying a home. This is going to be my forever home. I need to pay it down to have, zero money that I owe. And that's financial security to me. And after I talk to them and educate them, I tell them, I said, all the millionaires that are in the world, sometimes we think that these millionaires become millionaires because of an education, because of Ivy League school, things like that. Yeah. No, actually, 82% of all millionaires got their wealth by real estate because somebody taught them how to invest in real estate. They were with the right person to walk them through the steps. And that's how they become millionaires. And then they leverage the equity in these properties to build businesses and do all of these things. So anybody can be an investor. Anybody can be a millionaire. Anybody can do this. You just need to be able to speak to the right people that have the tactics to give you the knowledge to execute that.
Exactly. And to me, that's really important for the people to hear that, because I've been saying that forever. You don't have to have a college education. You don't have to make 100,000. You don't have to do certain things. And it is through the education that we receive, through other people that we hang out with and socialize with and ask questions, that we actually learn what to invest in, how to get where we need to be, whether that's our first house, buying our first investment, turning around and buying land, doing something with our money and making our money make us money, right? One thing during our conversation, many of our conversations, you mentioned that you have a child who actually invests already. This was impressive to me. I was like, what? How is she doing all of this, right? I want to know. Teach me too. So, Brian, can you elaborate just a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, I like the point that you bring up that, who you hang out with and who you want to surround yourself with, because it's like the old adage and the saying goes, if you want to be a millionaire, do what a millionaire does. Correct. Hang out with a millionaire. And so I am around a lot of affluent people, multi-million dollar individuals, people that are making $2 million a year, $1.5 million a year consistently. And it's not because they have this Ivy League education. It's because we all learn things and we've all helped boost each other up, and we like to teach the community and teach other individuals how to do it. And the app that you brought up is part of that, right? So at Neighborhood Loans, we put together an app. It's called Busy Kid. And what it does is most individuals that are looking to invest in the stock market, sometimes you'll hear some people like, oh, I got a Robinhood account. I'm working on this. I got that. I have an E-Trade account. I got a Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch. Well, these are all people that are having like brokers. They're paying fees and they have to have larger amounts to invest. And a lot of people get very insecure about dealing with those individuals because they're like, hey, I got to walk into the bank with $100,000 or I got to walk in with $200,000 to invest, right?
You feel intimidated.
Right. And then it's like, well, let me just do my 401k and have that matched, right? And so I believe in the 401k matching because that's free money, right? If it's 3%, 4%, take advantage of your 401k. But how do you invest, get like maybe a Robinhood account or something else? And so what Neighborhood Loans did is we set up this app. It's called Busy Kid. What it teaches it teaches capitalism at a very young age is really what it does.
I love that.
And so and that's the key to wealth, right? Is capitalism. So so what it does is the app, it's set up on your phone and it allows your child, you can put in chores like, hey, you took out the trash or you cleaned up the dog poop or you did whatever. And so it's linked to your account where you can actually pay them as for their chores. However, if they go out and they want to go and say maybe babysit or maybe go mow a lawn or something like that. I mean, I'm come from an old school era, babysitting and mowing lawns, but let's say it's true, right? Like a paper route. Like I had a paper route. Well, we don't have paper routes anymore, but these are ways that you can earn money. But with the Busy Kid app, it actually has a QR code where you can actually give it to the individual. They can scan it and pay you. The thing that I like about this account is that your child, like my daughter, she's 10 years old. It also has a brokerage account that's tied to it where she can buy stock. So she can go and say, hey, look, I want to go buy NVIDIA or like, let me go buy, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, because all the stuff that's going on in the Middle East. I mean, defense contractors, that sort of thing. And so she can take her allowance. She can take it. It's a checking account, and she has a debit card that she could use when she goes to the store, spend her own money, and she can buy stock in small denominations. So even if you're looking at a stock that's maybe $130 a share, she can buy a portion of that stock at like maybe $10 to $15 a share. So it's reasonable for her. Now, you asked a key question. Is it too young to invest, right?
Yeah.
Well, I got my 10-year-old doing it right now. So I'm hoping by the time she's 18, she'll at least have enough to go buy her own car cash or,
I'm
do a
34 years late on this one. So that's good though. This is what we want to teach the people,
right.
Not just for our children to build their own wealth, but for us as adults and as parents and grandparents to start building wealth. It's never too late either. So you could be 80 years old and start investing, not just for yourself, but also for your children's children's children. And ultimately, not everybody aspires to be a millionaire, but we all aspire to retire and enjoy our lives at the level that the comfort that we want to be comfortable with. So something like this is really important. And I think that for us, financial literacy is huge. It's massive because we lack that in most of our areas that we service. At least me, I'll speak for myself. And in the areas that I service, we lack financial literacy, meaning that we don't understand past what we've already been taught. And we've only been taught what we've been taught by our employers, by people who are investing in us, or we ourselves self-educate in that way. And it's good when, and I've come to realize rich people who have real money don't flaunt it. They have real money and they're in the background investing and learning more and moving their money around. And I think that they too help each other learn how to reinvest their money. Like, hey, I tried this works. No, this doesn't work. Try this. This is doing really great. This is the reason why. They educate each other. And that's huge because we don't have someone already educated that's bringing back that education. And that's the reason why I'm sitting here today. I hate making videos. I hate having to speak up and say things. But the reality is this: we have to help each other, educate each other. It's not going and getting a college degree. It's not going and sitting in something and we're not selling you anything, not yet anyways. You know, if you want to buy a home, obviously I want you to come to me. If you need to sell your home, I'm your girl. If you need a mortgage loan, Brian's here to help you. But we're here giving this information to you free because we want you to learn what we are learning. And I have so much yet to learn. So Brian, my next question is this: if in the event I want to start investing, because I always felt that if I invest into real estate, it's tangible. I can hold it. I can go hug my house. I can hug a tree. I can feel the dirt underneath my feet.
Right.
And to me, I see my investment. But when I talk about stocks and bonds, I'm like, I can't see it. I'm blind to it. I don't know where else to invest. I've looked into IRAs, Roth IRAs. I've looked into 401ks, which I'm self-employed. That doesn't work for me. Because no one's going to match me except for me. And that's not going to happen. I don't want to double up in there, although I should. So a lot of my investment, I have always invested in real estate, whether it's land, whether it's houses. I've owned several houses throughout my year and I've paid them off. A lot of people haven't had that opportunity, not because they're not smart enough. They are. They just don't know what they don't know. They haven't been taught.
Yeah.
So if you are talking to someone who's making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, and they want to get into their first home, or they want to learn where they should be investing things. Like I have John Brian Hope, or Hope Bryant, that I listen to quite often, and also Steve Harvey, a couple of different people who talk about how their family didn't come from wealth, and yet they went and worked minimum wage jobs and started to invest in things. And over time, it grew so big that now they have generational wealth, like nobody's business. So the people that I associate with, that I see myself with, are the people who make that minimum wage, who are going out and hustling and grinding to make the money. And we were taught, save, 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 save. If you don't have the money, don't buy it.
So that's huge, because a lot of individuals believe that, hey, I don't make enough money to become that millionaire. I don't make enough money to invest it, right? And there's a shortcut, and that's why we're having this discussion. Predominantly, when you look at the US and you look at earnings, there's three different major categories, right? So you have the first one, who are struggling individuals. These are people that typically will buy things off of credit. They're using credit cards to buy tires. They're using credit cards for groceries. They're using this, and they're always kind of coming up short every single month, and they're getting in debt. And so there's a large portion of Americans that have been taught to that extent to utilize credit all the time. Then you have, as a little bit more successful, these are individuals that have paid for cash for everything. They're not using credit for everything. They want to pay their house down to zero because that's financial security. They pay cash for a lot of their cars, or they're trying to pay everything off. And so that's kind of, it's a sound strategy, but it doesn't get you generational wealth, right?
Correct.
And so on our team, for instance, we're a bilingual team. So 30% of our customers are Hispanic. And in that regard, there's a cultural philosophy amongst Hispanics, because there's not people that do what we do in other countries like Mexico or other places. So they're not taught all of these investment strategies. So to them, financial security is paying that house down to full. Like you having no liens, like just in case a rainy day happens,
you have no mortgage.
You have no mortgage, you have all equity. And then when you get to the wealth portion, these individuals are people that buy stuff off of interest. What they're buying is not is what their asset is making them. So the interest that they're getting from their asset is actually paying for their life, right? So that's the three different categories. You have people that are credit, people that pay cash for everything, and then you have people that are buying stuff with interest off their asset. And so that's where the real estate is the shortcut, because if you get a $200,000, and let's just call it a $250,000 house,
right,
on average, your house appreciates around 3 to 5% every single year,
Correct.
right? So if you're looking at a $500,000 house that gives you $25,000, right? The other piece is when you're in the middle, sometimes you feel like the lowest interest rate is the best route to go because it's the lowest payment, because you're taught to look at an interest rate, a payment.
Yeah,
But that's
affordability.
because everything that we buy that has an interest rate tied to it is a depreciating asset. You buy a car, what happens the very next day?
Yeah.
It
It depreciates. It's bad debt.
Exactly. So we're taught to focus on the payment and the interest rate. But when you get into real estate, for every 1% that the interest rates come down, the house hyperinflates by 5%,
Correct.
right? So you can always refinance later, but if you buy that house for $500,000 and let's just say it appreciates 5% already, and then interest rates come down 1% and you bought it a little bit higher, now you got $50,000. You can leverage that equity, you can invest, and you can actually pull the delta between the interest rate you're paying versus the interest rate you're gaining.
Yeah.
Because you can pull an equity loan, you can do something like that, compound interest.
Correct.
Rule 72 is like you take it divided by the interest, and that's how long it takes for your money to double. And you can invest these into the markets, the S&P 500, the Vanguard 500, the Invesco QQQ, dollar cost average. Layer your money, get 5 essential stocks, 5% of each of your portfolio, right? And these are the ways where you can pull down sometimes a 27, 28% return between the 7% or 8% interest rate on a HELOC that you're paying on this money. So you're making your asset work towards getting you generational wealth as you're buying additional properties, instead of just looking at that 401k that you've just put $1,600 in for the year and you're getting 7% off of $1,600 versus you're getting 10% off $500,000 in 1 year. So that's how you use real estate to escalate and get into that wealth category.
I love that. I love that. And a lot of people don't understand how stocks work. If you could put it in the simplest terms for, let's say you're talking to a child, a 10-year-old child, how would you explain how stocks work? Because unless you self-educate or you really comprehend it like that, most people don't understand how stocks work.
So stocks, typically they'll start in from a startup of a company, which is an IPO, initial public offering. So initial public offering, they'll execute X amount of shares. And so they'll let everybody buy into that company and own a piece of that company. Let's just say company A, they offer an IPO, 100 shares. And let's just say, for instance, each one of those shares costs $15. So basically what they're looking for is $1,500 really, if it's 100 shares. Right. And so let's say that company does well with that, the $1,500, right? And if they do well with that $1,500, let's say they made an extra $2,000, right? Then that comes back and is divvied up amongst the shares. And so that's the yield that you make on that stock. And it can you can split or buy multiple shares, or sometimes they will raise the value of the share. And so this is where you get that. When it comes to investing, you're going to hear, like everybody, you hear these things like out there, like crypto and fast money makers and all this other stuff. I'm not a big fan of crypto because it's not federally regulated. So I'm just not a big fan of it. I do like blockchain. I think it's great. And it's I think the whole government and everything and financial services should all move to blockchain so we can tie everything and find everything. But you need to invest in stocks that are secure. And what I mean by that is if you go buy a stock, if that company goes down, it's going to be a major impact to the United States or anywhere, right? So it's like Apple. Well, if Apple goes down, that's going to impact a whole lot of people. Like that's probably
worldwide.
Yes. And Amazon or large companies that a GM, something like that, that's not going to go down overnight where you're risking all your money. And so that gives you an easy playing field to mitigate, like, hey, this one's not doing so well, let me move my money over here, let me buy and sell here. And so there's a whole strategy to this.
There's a strategy.
Investing.
Okay. And do you recommend going and jumping into it and hiring someone to teach you or to follow? Or do you say, hey, kind of sit back and learn, self-educate a little bit and and start learning by experience. And another question is let's say I invest $100,000 today in Apple, and then all of a sudden by tomorrow it's worth 150. Can I just pull out my money and say, okay, I tap out, I'm done? The next day, obviously not the next day. Let's say a week from now.
You can sell and share, just almost like it's like liquid asset. A lot of people that get into like the riskier stocks are the people that have kind of got into investing later. They're like, hey, I got to make money fast for retirement, and I got to make these large jumps and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But when you approach it earlier, you can put your money in more stable investments, like Warren Buffett. He's got to be the smartest financial investor in the United States.
Okay.
And he's worth billions of dollars, right? And even the way his will is set up, or his trust is set up, that when he dies, all his money will get put in the S&P 500.
Oh, wow.
And so the
don't die anytime soon.
the S&P 500 is the Standard & Poor's Fortune 500 companies. So these are the very top 500 largest companies in the United States. And let's say you put $500 into the S&P 500, that means that you're going to invest $1 in each stock of each one of these countries. So you're investing in the economy. You're not investing in just one company, right?
Okay.
And so as the economy does well, like right now, the Dow just hit 50,000 for the first time in history. And so that's collectively of all these companies and the Dow Jones Industrial Average when you look at it. And so when you're putting $1 in each one of these companies, one may lose, but what the other ones are gaining will offset that. So your money is more stable, and that's the better investment strategy.
Yeah.
Is by now the Vanguard 500. That's a similar vehicle. It's the top Fortune 500. It's just a different company. It's not Standard & Poor's. It's Vanguard that does it.
Okay.
And then Invesco QQQs. What they are is they're actually the top 250 companies that do technology. And so with AI and all of this stuff that we have going on and where technology is going, you want to diversify your money that way. So when you invest in the overall economy and you invest at an earlier age, the amount and the ability for you to make money or generational wealth is a lot higher than if I'm going to push everything in Bitcoin and now my money's gone. Or, hey, I'm going to push all my money in Tesla and then something happens and it's gone. Or, hey, I'm going to put all my money. So these aren't like they're bad stocks or bad options. It's just they're more riskier.
They're riskier. And so starting sooner is obviously better. I mean, by all means, start your kids off sooner. Is there a fee? Let's say, because I know I could just hear a couple of our friends saying, oh my God, does it cost to get this kid program? Is there a fee for that program?
No, we offer it for free for our buyers as something to do. The other thing that we like to do too is, and this is, I'm going to hit a touchy subject, but it's just because I understand it, because how I grew up and where I'm at. So I've had people that have come to me and says, hey, I'm 20 years old, and I have no credit, or I have bad credit and I never had credit. And I'm like, well, let's talk about that a little bit. And it's so crazy how impactful parents can affect a child's credit before they're even of age. I have seen time and time again where a parent may use a child's social security number to obtain utilities. And by the time they're 18 years old, they're like, I got a collection from a water company.
For like thousands of dollars.
And I was 9 when this happened, right? So I've seen instances like that. And then I've seen instances where somebody is 18 years old and they have an 800 FICO score.
That's crazy because the parents utilized it for the right purposes.
Exactly. So, hey, when my children, before and it actually helps the parent, because my children, they were working when they were 16, 17, 18, but I knew that the moment they hit 18, they were probably going to want to go buy a car. Right. And they were going to be like, Dad, Mom, will you co-sign? Like, I wasn't having it. And so, because I do finance and credit, so that's dangerous. Yeah. And so what I did is I put them on all of my cards as an authorized user 45 days before they hit 18. So by the time they were 18, they had 800 FICO scores, and then they could go into the dealership themselves and buy a car, because dealerships typically are FICO score driven.
Correct.
Right? And it doesn't affect me at all because I'm not co-signing. It doesn't hurt my credit at all. They're just utilizing my credit. So it's all about the decisions and the choices that you make in terms of investing, educating your kids on how to do this. because I think it's safe to say all of this, right? Like I heard this from one of my good friends. He had 10 children, right? And I was like, man, you got a lot of children. He's like,
A lot.
but the chances of one of them being very successful and taking care of me is great. Versus, and so we have to think about our children as our retirement too, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are we giving forward? So if we teach the right roles, we teach the right pieces, we have to be able to look when we're 70 years old, have we got our kids right off on the right step where they can come back and take care of us?
Yeah,
and help us.
absolutely.
I mean, it sounds a little selfish, but
No, but it's the reality of it, you know? It is true. It is very true. So would you be willing to come back and maybe do a class, not necessarily on that specifically, but on financial literacy? You know, what do we need to do to get into a position where we can build that generational wealth, where we can start to save up and put money away? Because I mean, it's wonderful for us to set up our children, but for those of us who haven't invested in the stock market, those of us who haven't, me personally, I've done a lot of investment in real estate because I always felt that that was the safest way, right? But I want to learn and have a more diverse portfolio. So with that being said, would you be willing to come back and have a
Absolutely.
class?
You know, I'm glad you asked that because we have already reserved a place here in Eloy at the community center on the 30th on Saturday. And I would love for your past clients, current clients to come and educate them on this because this is something I really thrive on. This is something that I really enjoy. Like I said, you know, I'm surrounded by individuals I want to help all the time. You know, my wife, she's from Mexico. And just kind of where I grew up, we didn't grow up with money. We didn't grow up with these opportunities. And I love to just take people that I grew up with or just people that I've been around my whole life and just show them the way to actually get that wealth long term.
Absolutely. And I agree. You know, as many people that may think they know me, I did not come from money either. My grandparents, you know, I had a baker, a housemaker, and farm workers as grandparents, and my parents worked out in the farm. And we did not come from money. My father worked very hard, and so did my mother, to build what they built. And to me, this touches home, where they invested their money in real estate. They invested their money in things that helped them. They didn't invest in stocks because they weren't educated. And we want to take that and change that so that people like our families, like us, can build that generational wealth. Not because we want to become millionaires or billionaires, but because we want to be able to retire and love up on our family the way we deserve to love up on them, the way we deserve to retire happily. And the reality is the economy is tough. It's expensive. And a lot of you guys are probably thinking, how am I going to do this if gas prices are $4.39, $4.40, what, $4.50? I don't know, in some areas. California is paying like $6 a gallon right now. We can still do this if we find the right education, the time and the desire and the will. We can do this together. So stick with us. We have more coming, and I hope to see more comments and a lot of feedback on what you thought of today's seminar, or not even seminar. What would we call it? Just conversation.
Yeah, I would just say this little preemptive coaching.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, we love you all. We hope you all have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Brian Reed, Branch Manager, Neighborhood Loans. Thank you.